Hello, I'm back. All right, so our next question is how and where to list a rental property. Let's start with the where, because that's a little bit easier. All right, here's some ideas. So obviously, if you work with a real estate agent, they will handle this for you. But if you're going to do it on your own, this is what you need to do. Zillow, you can list on your own. They have like basically a for sell by owner version of the for lease by owner. You can do that on the Zillow, and that'll syndicate obviously out to the world, only through Zillow though. But since Zillow is like the #1 real estate search engine, hey, that's a great place to start. I don't know if it costs anything. Anyway, you can look into that. It'll be minimal if it is. So you can list it on, you could list on Craigslist, but as we all know, Craigslist is real sketchy and you got to be very careful. I would not suggest listing it on Craigslist in 2024. Okay. Especially if you're going to be a first time landlord or a second time landlord, or your what I call brand new stuff. It's just risky, man. There's some real sketchy folks on Craigslist, and those people know how to work with, like, they prey. They know how to prey, and they know how to prey on first time landlords. They know. So you got to be very careful about that. I would just cross Craigslist off. Okay. There's also scams on Craigslist. Like this has happened to me and several of our listings over the years, at different years. They would basically make a copy of the listing with their contact information, whoever the scammer is, but it would be like really cheap. Like if the listing was 2,000, it'd be like 1,000. And so that gets them a lot of phone calls, and then they're hoping to essentially take advantage of the tenants. I don't know what they're trying to collect. Maybe a security deposit, maybe first month's rent, maybe application fees. I don't know. There's clearly some scam. I don't know how to think like a con artist, so I don't know what they're doing, but it's sketchy. Stay away from Craigslist, okay? All right. Facebook Marketplace, you can list on that. It's a little less sketchy than Craigslist, but still has its fair share of sketch. But you could list on Facebook Marketplace. And again, you just got to be very careful because you're dealing with the people that are going to come directly to you. There's no barrier between you and the tenant applicant. So there's sketchy people on there, you know, kind of like you get what you pay for. It's the same in this business. It just is. But listen, again, I said I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to encourage you to use a real estate agent or not encourage you to use a real estate agent. I'm not trying to shame anybody's decisions or defame other blogs or vlogs or networks or communities or ideologies or stances or forums or whatever. I'm not trying to do that because we all have our own way, and none of the ways are wrong. All I can do is share my perspective and what I think works and what I've seen go right and wrong in the course of my 21-year career. So be careful if you do Facebook Marketplace. You could, if you want, this is a middle of the road. Sometimes agents will do this, but usually not the top agents, but it's called a limited service agreement or limited service listing. And the agent will list it on the MLS just to list it. And you pay them a nominal fee, like a flat fee, like maybe it's $250 or $500. And that lists it in the MLS, which is, again, like I explained on the last video, the mothership of data. And that syndicates out to the thousands of websites that syndicate listings from the MLS or take listings from the MLS and put them on different websites on the interwebs out there. And some agents, that's just their model. They'll do a limited service listing and you can pay them and they'll list it, but then you have to still handle the phone calls. You have to qualify the tenant. You have to do all that. And usually there's limited relationship with the agent as to what information they'll provide you or won't provide you. So That's an option though if you're low on funds, but you want that step up. And what if you could just Google limited service listing agents in your market. I would probably just do limited service agent and then your zip code or the city name and just play around with that and see if you go down the rabbit trail. If you can't find one from there, you could go on Zillow, and I would look for an agent in your area that doesn't have a lot of experience. I would look for an agent that like is kind of new. I mean, the only agents that are going to do that are newer agents or agents that do that as a business. Usually. That's not always true. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like the agents that are really busy and doing a lot of volume, they're probably not going to do that. But some agents will. So you just got to figure out who they are. And you can ask them. Another place, you could just put a sign in the yard. Just go to Home Depot, get a sign. Usually they say for sale by owner. So you could scratch that out. That would look really crappy though. Or there might be for rent signs. Anyway, if you can't find one, just go on Amazon, order one, and then just get one of those. Throw that in the yard with your phone number. You know, and then just try that and get phone calls like that. Yard signs work. I mean, to be honest, with new construction, anytime you go like a new builder, new construction community, like community signage is like the number one traffic source. It just is. People follow directionals. When we do open houses, community signs are one of the number one ways people find out about it. Okay. So anyway, it works. Okay. So those would be the ideas I have on where to list a property. Now let's talk about the how. So I want to make it clear that when you work with a real estate agent, there's two roles that they have. So I'm going to go through their job, like, not qualifications. What's the word? Essentially their roles and responsibilities. There we go. So there's a leasing agent and then there's a property manager. Okay. Sometimes it's the same person. Sometimes it's two different people. Sometimes you can just have them lease it out and then you manage it. Sometimes you could lease it out and they manage it. Sometimes they could lease it and manage it for you. Or sometimes you could lease it and manage it yourself. I guess those would be the four options. Okay. But let me just talk about each one of their roles. So if you're going to do it, you know what you really need to do to execute properly. Okay. So the leasing agent is going to be the person that runs the comparative market analysis, which I explained that in another video, what that entails typically and how they run the comparative market analysis or the CMA to evaluate and price your property correctly. Okay. With supportive data. All right. So you got that. They will do that. They will market the property. So usually what that means is they'll take professional photos. Most agents know professional photos are the creme de la creme. That is the way to go. Don't skimp on the photos. Do not do it. You need at least 25 photos or more, and you want to do professional quality photos. That means you hire a photographer. Do not use your iPhone. No. Spend the money and do it right, especially if you're going to do it on your own. My goodness, you're going to have to spend some money. You're not buying a piece of pizza here. You're like, this is a house, okay? It's not a cheap business. I'm just going to be honest about that. It's not dollars, it's hundreds. It's not hundreds, it's thousands. It's not thousands, it's tens of thousands, okay? There is money that will be spent in this. There is just no way around that. If you don't want to be prepared for that, then go invest in like fractional real estate, or go invest in like a REIT, a real estate investment trust in the stock market. And that gets you into real estate, or even a syndicated fund. There's probably relatively less risk financially in the syndicated investments, but this is just going to have money. All right. So the leasing agent is going to be, marketing, and that includes high quality photos, at least 25 usually. The more the better. Sometimes you can do up to 40. And then they're going to field phone calls. So they're going to take phone calls. with if the tenant has a real estate agent, they're going to communicate with them. If they don't have a real estate agent, they are going to talk directly to the potential tenant applicant, and they might even show the property. That's part of their service. They are going to qualify the tenant. They are going to know what questions to answer, how to answer those questions. You're not probably going to know that, so you got to be aware of that. There's a risk in that alone. They are going to run the application on the tenant, which I talked about that in another video, the details on what that is about. And they are going to negotiate the terms of the lease. Like if they run the application and they present the application to you, you might want to approve them, but you might want to take a double security deposit, or even a triple, or you might want to negotiate on the lease move-in date, or you might want to say, I want a 2-year lease instead of a 1. Or you might want to say, if there's multiple applicants, maybe you counter back and say, yeah, we'll approve you, but with more rent per month. If it's a tenant-friendly market, then maybe they want a fridge to be included, or they say, hey, we'll take this property if you change the carpets out. So the leasing agent will negotiate that for you. They will prepare the lease terms with the industry standard, typically, which you may or may not know. They will set that up usually for digital signing for you and the tenant applicants, and then they will organize the move-in terms, whatever that looks like. If they're going to move in 3 weeks, they'll usually just keep in touch with them until that time frame comes. They'll collect a security deposit, typically on your behalf. Not always, but sometimes they will, and at least get it to you. They will move the tenant in, essentially, usually, but sometimes they won't do that. Sometimes that's on you if they're not the property manager. It just depends on the leasing agent. Okay, now let's go into the property management. So now once the tenant moves in, they're for sure out of the deal. And then, because that's the agreement there that ends, you're now beginning, or the property manager would come in. This is what the property manager does. They move in the tenant. They make sure the property is up to code. What does up to code mean? Okay, that can mean a lot of different things. There might be a certain city code that requires certain things. There's definitely a state code. In Texas, it's called the Texas Property Code. The Texas Property Code is the law. That's the law. That says what the landlord has to do and what the tenant is rightfully, what the tenant rights are. Okay, that's the agreement of what that says, and that is a very important document. VIPD, very important document. So you need to know that. The property manager for sure knows that if they're licensed. Most property managers should be licensed. Most states require it or encourage it, at least. But that's a question you would need to ask. Are you a licensed real estate agent? Nonetheless, they make sure the property's up to code. If they need to add keyless deadbolts, or they need to add peepholes, or they need to add smoke detectors, okay, they would know that. And then they would do what's called the inventory and condition form. That's what we call it in Texas. But a period of time from when the tenants move in, usually 3 to 7 days, is the norm here. The tenant would fill out a detailed inventory and condition form. It's 7 pages here, and they would say every little thing on the property that they usually see visually. But if you're managing it, what you need to do before that is you need to go and take a video of the property in great detail. Your video might be 30 minutes. I mean, if it's a 2-story home, do a video for the first floor, a video for the second floor, and then a video on the exterior. Do close-ups, do very detailed, hold the camera there a while on whatever issue you see, so you can take a screenshot if you need to for future. Take additional photos. Once you do the video, then go and take photos. That's what we always do. Turn all the lights on, turn the ceiling fans off for better video quality. Turn the blinds open and just check all the windows, all the locks, all the doors. Like, you're going to need to do a real inspection. And then, so once the inventory condition form is done, there could be repairs that are associated with that nobody really knew. And maybe the air conditioner doesn't work. Believe it or not, that happens more often than not. How could it work when tenant A moved out 3 weeks ago and tenant B moved in, and now all of a sudden the day they moved in, the AC doesn't work? Chances are tenant B did not break it. It's just, I've seen it so many times. It's so weird. And then what you want to do is after you do any of those repairs, Then you start collecting their rent. You would have already collected the first month's rent before they moved in. Never let them move in until you collect at least the first month's rent and security deposit. No exceptions. No exceptions. That's a deal breaker. Period. End of story. And then, you would collect the rent. If you don't get the rent, you have to get, it could be an eviction. It could be complicated. It could be a problem. It could be a lot of things. You got to be prepared for this. So you would have to deal with that. If you have a property manager, they would deal with that. They are the liaison. It's kind of like if you have a husband or a wife and you guys have an argument and your husband, you're like, hey, honey, we're going to go to the party. And he's like, okay, as long as we leave by 9. And maybe you heard he doesn't want to go. Okay, he never said he doesn't want to go, but he said, as long as we leave by 9, but you're interpreting it like he doesn't want to go. Well, a counselor might be able to be like, well, that's not what he said. That might be what you heard. That's what a property manager is. That's what a real estate agent does. They are that counselor, that liaison, that intermediary, that in between. They are the person that says, well, you thought you heard this, but they really said that. And that's how valuable they are if you see value in that. You might not. You might like the other side of that. Okay. And that's okay if you do. There's, again, no right or wrong way in this. I'm just explaining what it really means. But, and then, so if they don't pay rent, somebody's got to get involved. It would be a property manager or it would be you. And then from there, you have to work through that. Again, that might mean eviction. That might mean negotiating. That might mean working a payment plan. That might mean taking $1,000 today and letting them pay the other $1,000 that they're late on March rent over the next 6 months. That could be a lot of things. That is stressful, by the way, and complicated. So there's really, that's the real value of the property manager, in my opinion, is dealing with late rent, no rent, payment plans, all that, because they know how to handle that. And then the accounting, they do the accounting. So if they hire a vendor, they would collect the 1099s and they would pay the vendor so that all the accounting would be in your neatly organized little package at the end of the year for your tax purposes and everything like that. So if you feel like you want to do all those jobs, and then of course they would renegotiate when the lease term starts to end, either negotiate when they're going to move out or renew their lease. And then they would also handle any of the repairs, obviously, that go along the way. And then when the tenant moves out, then they would just rinse and repeat. They make ready, they turn on temporary electricity and water and sewage, and sometimes gas if it's cold, to prepare the property while the new tenant is going. And then you show it to have the utilities on while you show it in the next vacant status. So hopefully that helps you know the roles and responsibilities, and you can decide if you want to hire that out or do it yourself. But if you want to do all that stuff, great. Again, take what you like and leave the rest. This is just one person's experience and opinion. I'm not omnipotent and I don't know it all, but this is what I've learned along the way. I hope you can take a little nugget of this and help make a decision so you can move forward. That's what all these videos are going to be about, is not getting bottlenecked, but moving forward, because that is where life really is. Amen. Hallelujah. And I'll see you later. Bye.